Now, I'm going to preface everything by saying, obviously, I made the tier list. All right. I named it. I put the people in there. I did all that good stuff. So it's based on my opinion. Now, we can disagree. Y'all probably going to disagree with someone. And that's fine. We can talk about it. We can argue. But this is my list. So let's go ahead and get that out the way now. So I'm going to give you the names of the tiers. And then we can get into who's in every tier after. So tier number 1, the first tier, the top of the top, the upper echelon, whatever you want to call it. This tier is called Change the Game. Change the game. I started to call it the GOATs of basketball, whatever, but I feel like the word GOAT get thrown around a little too much nowadays. So I called it Change the Game. So these are people, these are individuals that, just as it describes, change the game of basketball. We cannot tell the story of basketball without these guys. These guys have a chapter in the story of basketball. So what I mean by that, that means they were the best players or they ran an era of basketball. Like, people had to go through them. They won multiple championships, whatever you want to say. There's an era of basketball that they were the guys. And those are who the people who are in the change the game category. Now, this is not the people, don't get it confused with the people that's just like, oh, they had a big influence on the culture. Now, that can be true too, but we're not talking about culture right now. We're talking about the actual game of basketball, the NBA, how the game was played, whatever you want to say. So that's top tier. That's tier number 1. Tier number two, all-time greats. These are guys that I believe you take them out of it. If you took them out of their era and dropped them into any era of basketball, they will still be one of the best players of that generation or of that time. So that is quantifying all-time greats, meaning at any point in time, they would have been one of the great players, one of the greatest players. So these are not guys that are just the top tier, but in the era that they played in, they could have been that guy in any era. You get what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Boy, you seen that? I'm glad it went right back. But anyway, moving on. Tier 3, greats of the era. These are a step down from all-time greats, obviously. They're some of the greatest players in their era. Now, that's not to say if I took them out of their era, they would have been nobodies or they wouldn't have been great players. But I believe they've been, number one, they benefited from the era that they played in a little bit. Number two, this era of basketball, they had a big print on that. They had a big imprint. Now that might mean they didn't run the era. They weren't never the best players in the era, the best player in the era. Maybe they were never top 5 in the era. But they left a big print on the game from when they played or in the time that they played in. That's greats of the era. Then tier 4, step right under that, great contributors. What do I mean by that? Exactly what I said. They contributed. They were not the guy, but these were guys that were such great contributors to most of the teams or championship teams, whatever you want to say, that they played in, that they deserve to be in. Because in my opinion, if you are a great contributor to multiple winning teams, multiple championship teams, that speaks to something. That's not a coincidence. Now, of course, obviously, you had to have some form of luck to be on great teams, to be on a team that work with you, whatever, or to play with a player that benefits you. Cool, but at the same time, that deserves credit that you contributed greatly to multiple winning teams. Because everybody can't say that. There's a lot of great role players, but every team that a great role player plays on did not win. That doesn't mean they're not a great role player, but there's something to be said about role players that consistently contribute to winning. If you get what I'm saying. So I call them great contributors, and it'll make more sense when we get into who's in that category too. Obviously, category 5. Some of y'all ain't gonna like it, but it's gonna be all right. Category 5 is did not do enough. Let's think about like honorable mentions. And I think that's important that I think the hall should do something like that. Maybe honorable mention. People ain't going to appreciate the honorable mention no way. And you wouldn't either. If you was in a science fair, you did you a science project, stayed up all night with your glue and cardboard and whatnot, and you get there and a guy get a first place ribbon, second place ribbon, third place ribbon, and then they hand you that honorable mention, you ain't gonna want it for real. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I think that's kind of what the Hall got to start doing. And I say that because obviously, like I just said, they're not gonna really appreciate it, they're not gonna really want it. But at least it let guys know, like, hey, we gave you a strong thought and consideration. Because a lot of times, I mean, that kind of gets said when it's like, all right, these are the people that's eligible. Because they always announce who is eligible for a Hall of Fame induction this year. They announce that every year. And then you see the list, and then people like us, we look at the list and be like, this guy, yeah, this guy, maybe, this guy, no. The guy that's this guy, no. The guy we said no to, that is the guy that are gonna. Those are the guys that are gonna be and did not do enough. So think about it like, you just missed the bar. You just barely, we thought about you. You had strong consideration, honorable mention, didn't do enough. Those are the guys that'll be in that list. Now, there's gonna be some guys in here I'm sure we're gonna debate on, but those are the 5 tiers that I gave for the Hall of Fame. And I think if the Hall had these tier names or whatever you want to call it, if they had something to separate guys, we would feel a lot better about certain people being in, certain people being out. Because then we could look at it like, all right, if we gonna put them in that tier, I understand why they put them there. Instead of certain guys being in, because like what sparked this whole thing with us is certain guys in my life. Well, you got your Michael Jordans, obviously, that's in the Hall. It feels strange to say, I'm not gonna name no names right now, but it feels strange to say certain guys is in the same Hall of Fame as Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? I know you get what I'm saying too. So that kind of is what sparked the whole thing of like the Hall of Fame needs tiers. Because obviously we regard Michael Jordan as Michael Jordan. But some guys in the same Hall of Fame. They in the same Hall of Fame. So I think the tiers will make us feel better about that. Like, okay, we got Mike, and then we got strong, great contributors. So like, I think that sums it up pretty good. So what you think about the names?
The names are very interesting.
Mm.
I think that it's very unique too, and I think that it puts your mind in a certain space to think about stuff a certain way now. So now we're not just thinking about, like, of course, like you said, the top tiers, like the goats, for lack of a better word, like the main people. But I
Mm.
think we can figure out a way to clean up the name a little bit because, like you said, the impact the game part
Mm.
is like, well, this person had a heavy impact in the game, and then, like you said, the culture piece will kind of tweak what people think about it. So, like, this person contributed to the game a very high amount, but then we start thinking about the culture impact of what they had. And it's like, well, he also had a little bit of the game. I'm thinking about somebody in mind right now. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's
Mm.
game culture. Like, he has a little bit of all this. So why is he not in this tier? And then you mentioned the error part, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, that's where he loses that next piece of, like, he contributed, but did he have an error? Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Ah, you missed the
Ah.
bar there. So now you're in the next group of, like you said, pluck him out, put him in any area, that'd be great. And it's like, well, I could see him doing that. I could see him doing 30 points a game in any area, 20 points a game in any. All right, cool. So I think that's a very interesting name to have everybody. And I will say this too, man. I think you said people complain about being honorable mention. I think that we kind of have to like ignore all that because players complain either way. Like, you're gonna have
Either
some people
way.
like, man, I should have been that second tier. Why you put me in the third tier? I'll be ready in any era. Like, all right, bro, whatever. Like, come on, man.
Just be
So,
grateful, big dog. So a lot
but
of guys talking about why I ain't do enough.
oh, for sure. That's. I think the only tier you probably would not get a lot of complaints in is people not being in that first tier. I think that's the only one that you wouldn't hear a lot of complaints because,
Cause when you see who in the first tier, it's like, all right, I'm not one of those guys. There's very few
yeah,
people that would even have a gripe to say, hey, hold on, I think I need to be in there with them. There's very
yeah,
few people that's gonna say that. Like one every 20 years could probably say that.
exactly.
So that's just one of them things. But I think there are people like you said. There's going to be somebody complaining about everything. Like, dang, I'm not an all time great, or dang, I ain't the greatest, one of the greats of my era. I'm just a contributor. It's going to be guys that say all of that. So,
Yeah, so
I mean,
I
you got
think
to
that's
go
the
with it.
only issue. I think that's the only issue I have with it is like the naming of it because then it kind of like puts a certain level of stigma to that thing. It's like, dang, I'm only a contributor. That's how you see me. Like I only contribute to the game. So that's why that's the only thing I'll say I'll poke a hole at. It's like, man, don't be saying call me no contributor. Like, what's wrong with you, bro? Like, all I
But
did, like, that's the only thing.
but the thing about it though, great contributors, part of what gives you that title, you were not the best player on your team, obviously. So what you want me to say? Great Robins to Batman's or something? You know what I mean? Great second best player, like great 1-2 punch. You know what I mean? Like, what you want me to call you? You are a great contributor. That doesn't mean you weren't an all star. That doesn't mean you weren't all NBA. But when it came down to winning, you were not the best player on your team. You were a great contributor, and even past that, you might not even been the second best player on your team. You could have been a guy that they would not have won without, though. And if you doing that multiple years, I think that says something. You know what I mean? And like I said, when we actually get into who's in what tier, you'll understand better. I'm sure most people at home probably thinking like you too. But when we get into who's in every tier, you'll be like, okay, I see where you're going. I see what he really mean. That guy is a great contributor because at no point in time will we say certain people was the best player on their team.
Mhm.
Most people would like the people in that list. Nobody would say that, but they contributed to winning so much and so often. They deserve to be in the hall. There's something to be said about that because those kind of guys deserve their place too. You know what I mean? It's some guys that was never the best player, but doggone it, if they didn't have them, they wouldn't have. They'll have 1, 2 less championships or whatever you want to say. Might not have none for certain guys if they didn't have these specific guys. So that's kind of what goes into it. So if somebody was to complain about being a great contributor, I think you being a little, I think you being a little nitpicky. You know what I mean? Like we gonna get into it. We gonna get into it. But yeah,
So you want to go ahead and get into your list, or you want to bring up my tiers and categories?
you go ahead and name your tiers. Like go ahead and give us your names, and we can get into that, and then we'll start breaking down who goes into what.
Progress is not about perfection and being perfect. It's about making growth no matter what. It's about pushing yourself to the limit and beyond those limits. Every challenge that comes your way, you're overcoming them. And it's about striving to become more and doing more. Every single step, every single day, every single dribble is a victory. You've won as long as you're making progress. Because progress is the only goal. So invest into that progress, invest into that dream. Get yourself a reminder that That
progress
progress
is the
is the
only
only
goal.
goal.
All right, so mine is similar to yours. I only have 4 tiers though. I didn't do like the honorable mention stuff because it's either you
Okay,
in or you out. Like I'm not even
I
doing that.
understand that.
You feel me? So, my first tier I want to call like the one of ones, and
One of
it's kind of
ones.
like the. It's the way I think about this is like I get annoyed hearing their names. It's not in a disrespectful way. I get tired of hearing their names over and over again. For one reason is that stop comparing people to them. These are the incomparable hoopers. Like stop. Like I love this player. Stop comparing them to them though. Like we have how hundreds of players in the game. Stop comparing them to this one. Like Jordan, let Jordan name die for a second. Like stop bringing up people and comparing them to Jordan. Stop comparing them to this player. Stop it. Put their names in like the back of the book for now. Stop using them. Find a different player to use them as a comparison. Stop comparing to them. And then, like you said, they're the all-time great. I think about it like that. Incomparable ones. Stop using the name to bring up with them, and then think about it as like if excluding like the Jordan Kareem stuff, like you can make a strong case for them being the best player of all time. Like if somebody
Right.
said excluding Jordan and Kareem, who could you say was the best player of all time? All these guys, you can have a strong like if we really wanted to have the debate, we could have a whole conversation around each of these guys being the best player. Because you know how the era goes. Like this player ran the 80s, this player ran the 90s, this player ran the 2000s, this player ran so on and so forth. You could
Mm.
have a strong case for them being the best player of all time. Or you could just say these are the top 10 players in the game or top level. You can easily have that. Now, what order you have them in is irrelevant at this point because they're all in that tier. But these are the players I consider like the top 10 to like 12, maybe 15 players of all time. And so that's my first tier. Like these are the one of one. Stop trying to say, oh, he remind me of Magic. Stop it, bro. Stop it. That's one Magic Johnson. Similar. He's in that lineage, but he's not Magic. Stop doing that, bro. Like I love this guy. I got people in mind right now. Yes, he's a tall facilitator and point guard, but he's not Magic. Don't do that. Okay. So these my guys like Leader Layman on. Stop hearing them names. Find other people. Stop being lazy. Find somebody to compare them to. My next tier, I want to call them the legends. These are the people who really great. The these are the ones you can start comparing people to now. Like you can start making the comparison with these people. They're not the top tier. They're that next tier where they're great. They won championships, so they had a very high impact in the game. They were amazing hoopers, but I can't quite put them in that Jordan category or that Kareem category of like these were the guys. Like you might not have been the best player on your team, but you were really great. Or you're the best player on your team, but you weren't the best player of that era. You weren't the best player. We can't mention you as being the best player of all time. You're not. You might even have been the best player in your position. So you probably like the top 5 of your position, top 10 of your position. But that first tier, like they're the first 1 to 2 players in their position. Then you might have like the center probably got like 5 people in that category, but you more than likely you in that top 10 of your category. So these are my legends, my legendary hoopers.
Mm.
Third tier is like the classics. I feel like you strong case like this. The classic and legends are not too far apart. Like it's very tough to separate these guys. But you probably were not the best player on your team, or if you were that second or third best player on your team, like a championship winning team or a very good team. So similar to like what you were saying, they had a high impact. They had a very strong case to being like a contributor, for lack of better words. Now they contributed to a winning cause, but I can't put you in that legends category because you weren't carrying as much weight. You weren't contributing as much. Your numbers weren't as great to put you in that next tier. So that's my third tier, the classics. They're great. They real hoopers. My last tier, I decided to call like the impact group. Like they didn't have quite the resume to put you in the classics. These are the people who almost have our heart and their game means so much that we just can't. They're not Hall of Fame caliber completely by their whole resume, but they left a strong impact in the game. They left us like they retired and they're like, oh, we
We're
will
gonna miss
always
them.
remember. We will always remember you. We're gonna miss what you had, miss what you gave to the game. So you left the impact. You're not the impact of the first 3 tiers because you didn't have the numbers to do this. You didn't have the minutes, opportunities to do all these things. So we definitely gonna have to have you in it. You're not if you wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame basically without this level of the tiers. So it's like, man, you're not Hall of Fame, but I gotta do something for you. So that's why I think the fourth tier comes in for me, the impact tier. So
Mm.
that's my tiers, man. I think it's the one of ones. Stop comparing me to anybody else. Leave my name alone. Only compare me to people in my tier. That's it. Don't compare me to nobody else. Then you got the next tier, the classics. The ones who were probably the best player on the team, but you're not like the top tier. So
Okay.
the first tier is like I'm the best in my position, or like top 3 in my position, most likely. Maybe top 5, depending on the position. Then you got the next tier is like I'm not the best in my position, but I'm probably like 3 through 10. The rest of y'all after that, it's like, yeah, I can hoop. I wasn't the best player on my team, or I wasn't the main focus on my team, but I can really hoop. Like you don't have to respect my name. Like I can dominate a quarter. I can be the reason we won the game in the finals. I can be the reason we won this game at this level, at this tier, or I can hold my own weight. Like out of 82 game season, we won 62 games. I don't reason we won like a good 20 of them, maybe 10 to 20 games. I don't reason we won that. The next tier is like, man, we love y'all. We love y'all game. You left the impact. We gonna miss you, but we can't see the game the same after you left. So that's my 4 tiers. It's the one of ones, the legends, the classics, and the impact group.
Okay. I like them. I like them. I can already envision a couple guys gonna be in every category. The word classics is kind of throwing me off a little bit because I feel like classics and impact I think about them kind of similarly. I don't know because I think when people say classics, first thing come to my mind is like music and movies. Like, oh, this album a classic or this movie is a classic, whatever. And when we say classic, it's usually like people like movies we just love. They're really, really good movies, but songs, albums, whatever. So I think of them kind of similarly, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So that throws me off a little bit, but I understand more as you know explain. But I like it though, man. The impact group going. Me and you gonna disagree about a couple of them. I can already tell. Cause
I'll be real with you. I'll be real with you. My impact is probably like, let me go look at my list. I only got like 3 people on my list, bro. Like for real with you. Like I couldn't
okay,
think too. I didn't give it too much thought, but like off the rip, I knew three people. They're not Hall of Fame, but when you think about it, it's like, oh, they did kind of like leave an impact. Like
yeah, for
impact is
sure.
a name that I just keep thinking about. So I only got 3 people off the top of my mind. Of course, it's gonna be more, but off the rip, it's like these 3 people have to be in that category for me personally.
Nah, I get that. I understand that for sure. So I think a lot of the guys in your impact group gonna be in my great Southern era group, and then you know some of them probably might be because I mean we got 5 tiers. I got 5 tiers. You got 4, so obviously they're gonna be separated somewhere. But I think a lot of the guys in my great Southern era and great contributors gonna be fluctuating right there. That's where they're gonna be at
Yeah.
on your category. And this is good though, because now we can like since I got more people on my I think I got at least 5 or 6 on each level. And
Hmm.
some got more than others as they should.
Yeah.
So once I do my names and you do your names, we can see like, all right, if I had took that guy, I would put him here or whatever. I know we're gonna have some of the same people anyway too though, but like it'll be good, man. I think it's gonna be fun.
All right, and then one more thing we talked about before that we have separating in is I kept mine as all people who are retired. So I have no current players in mind. We can I can throw in current players. Like I have an idea of what these players going to be. It's not that hard to do, but
Right.
I try to keep mine. I try not to speak on current players post career stuff, like where they rank and everything. We do have
Right.
a conversation, but I try not to get too heavily in stuff because you never know, something might swing them one way or another.
And they
Somebody
got
wins
him.
a ring, and it's like now we put them in a different category. But to be real with you, I already had them in that tier, so it doesn't change as much. But for the most part, I try to keep mine like players who are retired. So, and you got some that are current players in yours, but I think
Yeah.
that's the only real difference that we have in our list.
Yeah, I definitely got some guys that are currently playing, and the ones that I put in there is not no guys like you'll see, but the guys I put in there that are currently playing, I feel like if they retire today, this is where they'll be. Let's preface that. Like, all right, if they called it tomorrow, like, yeah, this is it for me. This is where they'll land for me. So, but I think throwing current players in there is better. It helps better see like, all right, this what kind of what he going for. You know what I mean? Because I want to throw guys in there that younger guys, people our age and younger, could kind of be like, all right, they didn't see so and so play, but I know this guy, and if he in there, then that makes sense. So
Okay,
that's
I got
kind of
you.
why I sprinkled a couple of them in there, and it's at least one in every level too. So it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
But you ready, man? You ready to get into it? I'm ready. I'm excited.
Hey, we got to throw this out there too, just for the old heads don't get any feelings and stuff.
Oh yeah, for
We
sure.
kept it. We kept it like we had to do a cutoff. We can't do John Havlicek and Bob Cousy and
No
like
sir.
we love them, respect, but it's like, come on, bro. Like we're not 30 yet. We didn't see all these people. So we had a relatively strong cutoff, like 80s, a little bit of 70s. I know I got some 70s in mind, but mainly 80s and down. So no disrespect to anybody before that time, but just like listen, we're younger. We didn't grow up watching them, so we had to have some level of cutoff for our list. So you're gonna see some names missing. We're not saying they were plumbers and they couldn't play. We're not saying they couldn't hoop. But from our perspective, what we watch and what we understand, we know who fits in these categories better based off what we've seen. So had to throw that little clarification out there for the old OGs that might be listening. Like, hey, we're not trying to throw shade at y'all, say y'all can't hoop. Not say we done with the 90s, like that little trend that's going on. We respect y'all. But we just know from what we've seen, we can categorize this better from what we saw. So I have to throw that out there for that people listen. But continue on, man. I want to hear who's in your list, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for throwing that out there, also. And number one,